I think keeping your mind open to all kinds of knowledge and experience, researching, referencing, collect images, collect paintings that you like. Just become very visually literate. I think that's the success. My career success is being somebody who understands not just art but history and science, and like I will delve into, how do you build a Arctic exploration ship. I had to do a deep dive into that on Frankenstein. So I think it's just being crafty and artistic, and opening your world to macrovision and microvision, and getting to know people.
Welcome to today's episode on the Zebra Spotlight podcast series. I'm delighted to be speaking to Tamara Deverell, who's the production designer for the amazing, wonderful film that was Frankenstein. So I'm going to be talking to Tamara and asking her questions all about her background and how she got into this fabulous arena. So Tamara, without further ado, please introduce yourself, tell the audience what you do, and so we can get a better understanding.
Okay. Hi, my name's Tamara Deverell, and I am a production designer, which a lot of people don't really understand. It's basically I'm responsible for the entire look of a film or television show. So everything you see on the screen, whether it's a location or a set that's built, even if you don't know it's a set that's built, I have a finger in. Just and the color palette. I work closely with the costume designer, the cinematographer, the director, and all the department heads, the head of visual effects, to create the final look of the film.
Now, just with that description, if everyone were to play that back, I mean, that's a huge undertaking and a huge responsibility.
Yeah, so I don't do it alone. So I work no, I work closely with an art department which is comprised of a number of set designers, illustrators, concept artists, graphic designers, 3D modelers, model builders. Then there's construction and paint, or the people actually build the sets and paint the locations and carry that through. And then there's the set decoration department, which the head of which would be like when I won Academy Award for Frankenstein, my co-nominee was a set decorator. So that's a very important person in my world. So the set decorator and all the set dressers and the electricians and the riggers, and there's a whole slew of people. And then it goes on from there. There's special effects that we work closely with if they have moving parts on sets, which if you've seen Frankenstein, there was a lot of interaction with them. And there's greens, who handle anything green and growing. Doesn't matter how big or how small. We had on Frankenstein a moss squad that Guillermo wanted. So, we created that with the greens department, but also with the scenics who had to paint and create some moss. So, you know, you're, on a film, I think what's amazing and what attracted me in the first place is that so many departments and so many people collaborating and working together. And when I was very young and still in art school and I started working in film, that's what really clicked for me, was this collaborative atmosphere.
In fact, let's go back to the beginnings. So, how did you get into? What was your background? Sort of artist, academic, and then how did you get into TV and film production?
I was in art school in Vancouver, BC, for many years. Like I went to Capilano College. I actually started at Capilano College when I was still in grade school, in high school, studying painting. And I just kind of was anything in the arts. I was interested in printmaking, painting, art history. For a while there, I thought I'd become an art historian, which obviously lends itself well to what I do as a career. Printmaking, photography, and then I got into filmmaking. And around the time I got into filmmaking, my father, who's a writer, still working actually, in his 80s, he sort of had this idea that I should work in film because he saw that I was kind of wanted my fingers in so many pies, that he thought filmmaking, something in film would be a good sort of place for me to be without really knowing. He'd written a couple of scripts. So he called some producers friends, said, my daughter might, she's interested in film. And they said, yeah, well, she can come out here. And this was in Montreal where my older brother was living, and we'll give her a job. Right. And then I go to Montreal. So there was a bit of nepotism, a bit of networking. I go to Montreal and they don't really know who I am. So I worm oh yeah, Bill's daughter. Okay. So I wormed my way into a job in my first film as as assistant costume designer in a department of basically two people, me and the designer. Um, that was, it was a Canadian film. It had Kiefer Sutherland in it, who at the time was 18. I don't even think it
Wow. Okay.
shows up on his credit list like so I did a couple of films in the costume department with the same company. I fell in love with it. I worked my butt off basically, and very interested in everything. I was just soaking it all in because I got the opportunity to be on set, which a lot of people in the art department don't get. So I just was like inhaling it. Um, but I was also drawing because I was an artist and I was noticed on set drawing and sketching and that I was good at it, which I was, and by the script supervisor of all people. And she said, "Well, you should be in the art department." And then from there, she said, "Go and meet a friend of mine who is François Seguin, who's a Quebecois production designer." I met with him, and that's how I got in worked my way up through. For 2 years, I worked with Francois, starting as a prop buyer, a set dresser, a set buyer, an assistant art director, and taking it night school. I realized if I wanted to go into the art department proper, I needed to learn to draft. So I took the only course that I could take, which was at night school, which was drafting for mechanical engineering,
Wow.
which is a bit of a joke. But through that, I learned how to, back then it was hand drafting still. It was probably the last year, in fact, that before CAD, computer automated drafting came into effect. But I learned how to hand draft. And then I moved to Toronto. And again, I was very lucky to meet with Carol Spear, who's an amazing Canadian designer who's done most of David Cronenberg's films. So I met with Carol, and really she was my mentor, her and Francois. Um, Although I worked my way up very quickly to become her art director, but she really taught me what production design is on the job. And then I started doing both. And it was hard because I wanted to stay as an art director, which is a very different job, but you're doing scheduling and budgeting and manning the department and being sort of the boss, the sergeant of the art department. And I really enjoyed that, but it was kind of in the cards for me creatively, I believe, to become a production designer.
Wow, what an amazing journey. It just listening to that, it just sounds as if someone who loves producing art with the artistic talent and seeing art suddenly actually being immersed within it, where it becomes like the painting or the vision suddenly becomes a 3D model that you're actually interacting and being completely immersed in a completely different, hitting all sorts of different senses rather than just looking at a 2D
Yeah.
image.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was it. That was like it's so immersive. Film is everything, and each frame is a painting or a sculpture or a bit of both with audio.
And congratulations to you and all the team, and it's particularly on the Academy win, which is superb. But it's also, I guess, a lot of people don't realize that a lot of production that appears to be in Hollywood or based in the US, it's so good to see Canadian teams. Sort of
Hmm.
winning the accolade from the production design to the cinematography and the post sound as well. That there's a lot of people based
Hmm.
in Canada all coming together. So it's a wonderful win for Canada as well.
Yes, yeah, very proud of bringing it home to Canada.
Before we come on to discuss Frankenstein, I was just scrolling through your IMDb profile, and then I came across one of my favorite TV shows ever, Suits. Um, Now, there's no comparison between the visuals, but just in terms of producing a series like that, in terms of production design, what would be, how could you explain to the audience what sort of things would you do, or would you suggest, or would you direct in there that people can understand, rather than a lavish set with, you know, a fantasy type set?
I mean, the thing I loved about Suits is, one of the reasons I was interested in it actually was it was a fairly straightforward job. And I had two young children at the time, and it was a very nice episode in my life to do something that wasn't futuristic, that wasn't Guillermo del Toristic, that was just kind of straightforward in a world that I knew and appreciated, but was slightly heightened because, every set was like, the top, the law office was this great law office. And I didn't start, I can't remember the fellow's name, but I didn't start the show. So there was a designer who did the pilot for the series, which was shot in New York at a real law office, and then they came to Toronto and replicated the law office more or less, but as a studio set. And so I came in at around episode 4, and I actually find it kind of funny. I came in because of the set decorator who I'd been working with, and he had started doing it, and he recommended me as the production designer to replace this wonderful production designer whose name I forget. So I came in like about episode 4, and I was very, I didn't really want to do a show where I'm not going to get to design anything. Of course, the producers say, "Oh no, we haven't finished the law office." So I did get to do a lot of, the library and adding offices because, when a television series starts, it starts sort of small and contained, and then as it grows in popularity, you start to add, and then every episode there's kind of often a new set or special location that you have to build. And Suits had like, it was posh, it was elegant, everybody was good looking and the actors were really lovely. I mean, Patrick, who plays the main character, I still am in touch with him. They were all great. So it was a real pleasure to work on. It wasn't a difficult show, I'm going to admit it. It wasn't like trying to do Frankenstein's lab, but it had enough challenges to keep me interested for, I did it for the first 2 seasons, basically. Yeah.
Of course, I visited the main lobby as soon as we went to Toronto and did all the touristy things. I thought,
Mhm.
oh, no, I need to go to the suits office. I need to go to the suits office, and then just walking in, it obviously looks completely different to watching it on the TV show. It's sort of, I guess it was a Saturday, and there's a security guy there said, yes, this is where they filmed Suits, and it was quite soulless. And then you think to yourself, so what magic do you put in? For instance, if you look at Harvey Specter's office, and he's got all his record collection and the basketball and all of these sort of things. I'm guessing that's your influence of how do you design this space and make it this represents Harvey Specter.
Yeah, I mean, his office was, it was like a unique shape. And he was given sort of the corner office,
Yeah.
which was unique to his character and indicative of his character. And then he had these incredible paintings, which came along before I got on, but Clive Tomlinson, who eventually took over from me as the production designer. The decorator became the designer because he knew the show inside and out. And he got some really interesting paintings that fans were just crazy about and were always asking. I still like get the odd sort of email. I don't know how they find my email. Where were those paintings in her office from? And I'm like, oh gosh, I know so long ago, but it was a great show. And the producers were great. It was just, they were lovely. Aaron Korsh, who developed it. And I think they were doing another Suits. I thought they
I
were.
heard there was a Suits LA, but I'm not entirely sure
Yeah.
whether they were related. But
No,
but
I think they're the same writers, I believe. Yeah.
I always found it intriguing that even from the costume design, they made sure Harvey looks totally, Harvey and Jessica look completely different to everyone else, and there's a certain hierarchy and tier of even the what people were wearing. That when you're
Mhm.
top tier, it's the big wide lapel type suits going down to okay, yours is a slightly smaller lapel, probably different
Yeah.
material. It was just genius to watch and genius to look at, and it was a very good looking show.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really, yeah, it was nice to work on something that's just always so good looking from every angle. And then the odd time we do like, the his sort of student apartment, the character that Patrick played. I was
Yeah.
like, we get down and dirty, a little grungy, which was always like, oh, whoa, this will be fun. You know, made it exciting. But it was a lovely show. Yeah.
And then going on to bolder and more beautiful things, let's come on to Frankenstein. I mean, it was stunning to watch, and the set design was incredible. Everything was just, you know, just fantasy, but just so beautifully done. And I tell people that it's a beautiful film. It's a wonderful romantic love story, um, and I didn't expect that's what it would be. You know, when you watch the trailer, you think it's going to be some sort of horror type thing,
Yeah.
and it's going to be lots of mayhem and bloodshed. But it's just a beautiful film. So how did you end up working with Guillermo del Toro, and how did you get involved with that?
I mentioned Carol Spear, the designer that I worked with.
Mm,
So she did Guillermo's first movie that he shot in Toronto. So he's done many movies in
mm,
Toronto. He really likes Toronto, and the crew there sort of have grown up with him through many years. So I worked as the art director on Mimic, and that would be back in 1996. So it's been a long time ago. And then we sort of worked together on this series that he had created and written called The Strain for about 4 years. Um, and that was, I was working on that when he did Shape of Water and this using some of the same sets, like we went back and forth. But
Again, another
you
beautiful
know,
film.
yeah, I didn't do it, but a couple of our sets ended up in it. But my dear friend Paul Osterberry was the designer on that, and it won Academy Awards and
Mm,
BAFTAs and all that, and well deserved. And then after The Strain, I did Nightmare Alley with Guillermo, which was again, I thought one of the most beautiful things I've worked on in terms of the Art Deco and the carnival built. And then we did Cabinet of Curiosities, and then we did Frankenstein. And when Guillermo asked me to do Frankenstein, it was at the Nightmare Alley premiere with all these movie stars and Bradley Cooper, and he leaned over and he just said Frankenstein to me. And I've told this story before, but I was like, I was working on Cabinet of Curiosities, still exhausted from Nightmare Alley, and Cabinet of Curiosities was truly a difficult movie because it was an anthology series, so it's like seven different directors, five different
wow.
cinematographers, and and only one of me. My head was spinning, and all different periods. But of course I said yes when he said Frankenstein because who can resist? And then that was sometime long, quite a while before we actually started production.
And I think what's extraordinary is obviously with a lot of films or TV shows like take Lord of the Rings or something like that, for instance, there's so much CGI and in terms of the visual effects. But what was extraordinary about this is the actual set building, the carpentry, the real life stuff that you could actually
Mhm.
touch and play with, to the prosthetics. It was just insanely brilliant. But that must have been hugely challenging at the same time.
Yeah, it's not that we didn't have visual effects. We just
Mm,
had such great sort of seamless visual effects extending the sets. But yes, we Guillermo wanted something very handmade, and we hand built. The ship was built on a giant gimbal. You've probably heard that story
mhm.
where when the creature pushes it, it's actually moving on a mechanism, which was a huge endeavor. Yeah, so many moving parts, so many. We built the giant ice field, and then we did have visual effects extended. But even our effects department, quite honestly, they're not just punching in numbers into AI; they're actually hand painting in a digital world. So even that has a handmade quality to it. Um, yeah, and it just, Guillermo and I think, I mean, I love to build things. I love to be a part of that. And we had like 20 sculptors, we had so many painters, greens, and just everything just so lovingly handcrafted. It was really quite extraordinary to be a part of that in such a big way.
And I think it shows you hit the nail on the head by saying it's lovingly crafted. You can tell that a lot of love and passion went into it, and well deserved win. Um,
Thank you.
and are you allowed to hint at sort of what's next, or are you taking a bit of a break at the moment?
Well, I am, it's like what's next it's hard because what do you do after something like Frankenstein? Quite honestly, it's got to be something really special. I'm not getting younger, and I also really want to we've moved to an isolated spot in the country. You can see the woods behind me
Beautiful. You're in
and
Nova Scotia.
in Nova Scotia, and
Yeah.
I just want to be able to do some of my own artwork, which is long overdue. So I'm trying to do that. I'm trying a little bit to do a graphic novel that I started last winter.
Wow. Okay.
It's really hard to do. It's hard to work as an artist. It's easier to work as a production designer with a project and a script that you can follow. So I'm trying to write my own stories, I guess, for the time being. And if something really delicious comes along or anything that Guillermo wants to do, he knows where to find me. So yeah, I'm not actively looking, and we'll see what happens.
Fantastic. Well, if you're having any collections and going to be celebrating our artwork in Toronto, we'd love to come and attend.
Okay.
And your field is quite niche in many ways, and as I said right at the beginning, it's probably not the best understood. And I'm glad you've explained to the audience pretty much what you do. What would be your advice for upcoming artists or people who want to get into either from stage design coming into movie production? What would be your advice for sort of younger folk wanting to come into this career?
I think really I came at it from so many different like studies and interests. And I think keeping your mind open to all kinds of knowledge and experience, researching, referencing, collect images, collect paintings that you like, just become very visually literate. I think that's the success. My career success is being somebody who understands not just art but history and science, and like I will delve into, how do you build a Arctic exploration ship. I had to do a deep dive into that on Frankenstein. So I think it's just being crafty and artistic and opening your world to macrovision and microvision, and getting to know people. you know Career advice, yes, to get in the film industry, it's about networking. It's about putting together a strong portfolio if you're in my field, about, just getting your foot in the door. However, doing smaller films, doing commercials, doing music videos. That's where so many people start. That's where I started. And you just, and you find your niche, and don't decide, oh, I want to be a production designer. Because I think some people go, oh, that's what I'm going to do because it's the department head. You might find that you want to be a graphic designer, and or an art director, or a set painter. I mean, those are careers in and of themselves. Just like, a boom operator is a career, or a second assistant camera person, or first assistant. That's a career. So there are so many careers in filmmaking that I think are worth exploring and finding out about. And, if you can just, I was lucky. I got a film where I was on set and I was able to really absorb what everybody did. I could have gone in different ways. Like, after I did my first show, I could have gone into the AD department and become a director. But I think I'm happy where I went. It satisfied me artistically.
And before I let you go, I know you're always incredibly busy, and if and when you get time to enjoy TV shows or movies, do you have any favorites? Have you seen anything this year that really,
Hmm.
moved you? Is there anything that you can share with us?
I've been watching so much stuff. I can't remember any of them. Um, I've been trying to watch some of the short films, like two people exchanging saliva, I think it was called, which was one of the Oscar nominated. And because we met some of these filmmakers, we watched that, and I thought that was an incredible film. There's films out there that just didn't get any award attention that are worth seeing. I do have to say though, I want to say Sinners to me,
Hmm.
which I watched and I didn't know anything about. And then as I've gotten to think about the subject matter and how it's really about Black history and the relationships between Black and white America, especially at that time, I think it's a phenomenal film.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I'd have to say, it's really, it just keeps coming back to me and resonating with me as an amazing piece of filmmaking that people will talk about for
Hmm.
many years. Because, like, I mean, now my social media is like all about Sinners and about the stories behind it, and about, what's the real, what is it really about? It's not really about vampires. And when I first watched it, I knew nothing about it. I was totally surprised by the vampires, and then I
Same
went,
here. Same.
And then I
I think
went, oh,
that's the
oh,
best way
wait.
to watch it.
Oh, I get it. Like, there's a thing here. This is like about something else. So, for anybody who's watching, going, oh, well, it's just a dumb vampire movie, you're missing the point. Yeah.
I think, well, if anyone says that, they missed From Dusk Till Dawn.
Right? Exactly. Anyways, there's so much good work out there. There's a lot of great stuff to see. So, TV shows. What have I been watching? Oh my God. I see they don't stick with me. I have to check my list. Um, but I feel like after our talk, I should watch Suits again because I didn't really ever watch it. I just worked on it and everybody loves it so
I,
much.
I think that is a phenomenon. I spoke to Paul Hirsch, who was the editor for The Empire Strikes Back,
Right.
and he said that he never, once he's worked on a film, he never watches it ever again. That's it. I
Right?
think there are some people who haven't even watched the movies that they've been involved in, and I couldn't quite get my head around that, which I thought was really interesting. And until it actually comes out on release, and obviously some people like editors who watch the film so many times.
So many times. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know how they do that job. It's so like,
but there's I think this year One Battle After Another was pretty phenomenal.
yeah,
Marty Supreme as a film, very filmic. I thought was
beautiful to watch. I mean, I
beautiful to
thought,
watch.
yeah, I just, the story, didn't really. There was when I say there was shows that I saw that should have been, had more attention, like The Testament of Anne Lee. Uh, I don't know if you saw that. An
No,
incredibly
no.
odd and compelling movie about this woman who started the Shaker religion in the States, and it's about religious fanaticism, which I surprised that I actually was like dazzled by it or moved by it or
Hmm.
interested in it. Anyways, I saw that while I was in Los Angeles during all these awards thing, and I thought, oh, well, that one's quite an interesting film and worth seeing. So there's a few like that that just weren't really, you know.
And the surprise for me this year has been Project Hail Mary.
Oh yeah, well, I haven't seen it yet.
Again,
That's this year's.
yeah, but
Yeah.
again, absolutely beautiful film. And I'm
Okay.
pretty sure it's going to get nominated or definitely win some awards next year. And I
Yeah.
think it's probably Ryan Gosling's best performance to date. But um, it's one of those rare films that everyone can watch across different
Right.
generations,
Well, I have
which
to
is
wait.
very
We
rare
don't have a
nowadays.
theater. We don't have a theater here in
You
rural
really
Nova
are.
Scotia.
Out in
So I have to wait. But I am going to Montreal, so maybe we'll
oh,
check it out there.
fantastic,
Yeah, or I
fantastic.
have to wait to watch it on TV, which is always a disappointment, but
I know. But thank you so much for taking time out to
my
speak with me.
pleasure.
I really appreciate it. Congratulations again on your Oscar win to you and all the team. So well deserved and such a wonderful film to work on. And we very much look forward to seeing what you get involved in next.
All right. Okay,
Um,
thank you.
Thank you so much, Tamara. All the best.
Okay. All right, Latif.
Bye bye.